all right, is about 1.5 times less. So I encourage you to look at this information. But what I want to leave you with is this notion that the only appropriate number of murders in this community and the number that we are going to be working our tails off every day for is 0. I can say that on behalf of everybody here in the unified government of Athens-Clarke County.
That means you'll have to deport all illegal criminal aliens.
I have a number of members of the press here.
That's the only way to do that, sir.
And so
the DA will lose the cases.
what I would like is, if you're a member of the press, if you'd identify yourself and the outlet with which you're associated and ask your question. I'd like to answer questions for a little bit.
Mayor Kelly-Girtz, Claudia Kelly-Bazan with Fox News. Good morning. Before I ask my question, could you first address the protesters that are here? They're obviously really upset with the situation. If you want to just address them being here and the signs that they're holding. You know, the blood is on your hands, justice for Lake and Riley.
I'd say trauma affects all of us. And I understand in the wake of a great tragedy like this, we're all deeply hurt. And everybody expresses their hurt differently.
Who voted
to follow up on that,
to make Athens-Clarke County a sanctuary city, sir? Who? What's their name?
What legislation were you talking about?
I'm an old man. My ears can only hear one thing at a time, and so I'm asking you, Claudia, if you'd repeat that question.
Yeah,
we want to ask questions.
You mentioned something about legislation earlier. I couldn't hear what you were saying because of the protest. Could you just repeat what you were saying about legislation?
I certainly will. There's been no legislation from this government that has created sanctuary city status. I also mentioned the prospect of federal legislation.
8/20/2019. Liar.
I need to call on one person at a time. I was a high school teacher for a lot of years, and I got better behavior out of them.
And then my final question for you is, 2 public defenders have now given their notice that they're going to be representing Jose Ibarra in this case. What's your reaction to this notion that, you know, taxpayer dollars are essentially going to be funding the defense for this illegal immigrant, whether he's found guilty or not? He is here.
As a legislator, that set of procedural justice is not in my domain. So you'd have to ask those folks either in public defense or prosecution.
Do you have any reaction to that, just being the mayor of the city?
Don't at this time. Yes.
Mayor, Steve Gelbach from WSB-TV. Some of their concerns have to do with the 2019 resolution that was passed and signed by you after you came into office. It is entitled in support of immigrants and the undocumented community here, and it does state that all statuses are welcome. Do you want to respond to that? And does that give you say it's only a term and definition, but does that give the impression that this is a sanctuary city?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much for asking. I need to be able to answer clearly, so I'll need the voices in the room to listen. Appreciate that.
Are you going to rescind it?
What I'd like to note is that here in Athens-Clarke County, we center our work in the public sector.
You need to go, sir. We don't want to hear from you no more. You're not defending us. You're not upholding your oath of office, sir. You are lawless. You are a criminal.
I'm trying to ask a question.
So your press members...
If non-members of the press...
Yeah, I'm a press member, too.
...might be asked to leave.
The people. We created this government, and we pay your salary. You do what we want you to do, not what you want to do. That's the problem with this lawlessness in our country. You're not upholding your oath.
I've got a question from a member of the press.
So obviously that gives the impression to the community and even parents out there who are sending students to your city to go to college. What do you say to that?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. I want to say that we center our work here in Athens-Clarke County in people's humanity. And part of everybody's humanity is the expectation of human dignity. While 2019 was not that long ago, you might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like Charlottesville.
This is an invasion! When I was younger, I was a criminal. And you know what I thought about doing? Crossing the border to Mexico to get away from my crimes.
Son, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Jesus Christ, he saved me, and I no longer live that lawless life, which you do.
Son, son, I'm going to ask you to leave.
You are lawless, Mr. Mayor.
I'd be glad to schedule some time with you if you'd like some individual time.
Yeah, I'd like to spend some time with you.
Let's do that, but I need to continue.
I got a question.
How about a town hall?
Sorry.
I'm with
So
three of the
are you
people.
going
I
to
have a
rescind the
question.
resolution? Is that still in place? Does that give the impression this is a sanctuary city?
What-
No, you can't call it that under Georgia law?
What we wish to do is dignify everybody's humanity. There's nothing in that resolution.
It'll be a white
That's
creates-
not the law.
You
You
did
took
not
an oath to uphold
agree.
the law, not your feelings or nor your opinion.
Chief, I don't know
You
if you have
called me a
time to
That's
white
what
repeat
you're
that.
supremacist.
No, sir. You're talking BS to us right now.
I need to answer one question at a time.
Yeah.
Right here, sir. Alex Capriello.
I'm going to continue my answer from a moment ago, and then I'll get it.
You called me a white supremacist in your resolution.
Well,
That was not nice to me, was it?
What-
we've had enough. and
what we wish to
have a
do-
right to speak. This is America still.
What we wish to do
Okay. All right.
is to understand
Stop talking if you'll call upon me so I can ask a question.
that those families that are here came here under less than ideal circumstances. I've outlined my desire for better federal legislation that would standardize the immigration process. We've not been living in that environment. I mentioned I was a career educator. I've worked with a lot of students and their families in this community. And the practical reality is that those families tend to be blended amongst a variety of immigration statuses. We want to create a stable environment for people in our communities. And when that community is disrupted by hate or vitriol, that's not a safe environment for their school children and their families to live in.
Called righteous indignation, sir.
The resolution speaks to that question. So,
Not vitriol, it's
Mayor,
righteous
Christine
indignation.
McNair with 11 Alive News. I know that some of the protesters who are here right now are concerned with some of the language in the resolution. Could you address the aspect that talks about white nationalists and xenophobes have been emboldened by some politicians? Was that an issue that your community was dealing with at that time?
that's an issue the United States was dealing with in the late teens.
How about locally?
We received information of all kinds of terrible things.
Had anything happened here? I mean, was there any, I'm just trying to figure out language-wise why that was.
We had hate activity toward members of this community, and we wish to indicate that we didn't want to embolden that hate activity.
Liars.
Moving
Sir,
on.
right here, Alex Capriello with News Nation. While we can debate whether or not Athens is a sanctuary city, the fact of the matter is Jose Ibarra and at least 4 or 5 other undocumented immigrants were living in that apartment. So I want to know whether or not you feel, as city leaders, that you owe the Lake and Riley family an apology for allowing that to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
We are deeply sorry for this tragedy. The responsibility for this crime rests solely upon the perpetrator.
No, rest on you, sir. God Almighty has
Others.
said so.
Yep.
Got time for about 2 more.
God Almighty speaks today.
This could be a question for the chief. What is the current policy with the government when it comes to notifying federal immigration authorities? I mean, and was this particular suspect, was he picked up for a shoplifting? One of the representatives of the State House told our reporter there yesterday that he did that interaction or was detained at some point by you guys?
Sure, there was an arrest made on him in October for a shoplifting case. That is an active case that I can't talk about. He was cited, which is common for certain misdemeanor offenses. When we have encounter with people, we run them through our GCIC as well as our NCIC. If there was any warnings or anything that had come back from the federal government holds warrants, then we would have held him at that time, and that was checked, and there was not any warrants at that time, nor any status. We can't look on our computer and tell you the status of someone's immigration. We don't have that information.
Did you notify federal authorities though, only if there's a particular warrant, I guess, for their arrest?
So if we place a hold on, then we would notify whatever federal authority that was, and then when they go to the jail, then that's where also the 287G program comes in, where federal authorities are notified.
Madison Scarpino with the Fox News Channel. We know from arrest affidavits that Ibarra is accused of seriously disfiguring Lake and Riley's skull. What was the weapon used?
I can't go into that. This case is solely UGA Police Department, University of Georgia Police Department. Again, I'm not going to go into details of that investigation. I just appreciate all the efforts from University of Georgia Police Department, Athens Clark County Police Department, GBI on quickly finding this violent offender.
Is there any additional details that you can share with us today?
I wish I could. I can't. It's at this point, it's moved towards prosecution, and for the integrity of the case, I would not comment.
One more.
From Telemundo. Have you been approached by any entity like the sheriff's office or other entities to taking place 287G program that allows the federal government to deport people who has a criminal background? That is a program that check undocumented persons to see if they have a criminal background. Have you been approached for somebody to implement this program in Athens, Clark?
I have not been approached. Again, largely that's a phenomenon that happens at booking, that happens in the jail, which by Georgia statute is under the sheriff's authority. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Did you take your oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, sir? Yes or no?
Were there any other arrests?
Section Title 8, United States Code, Section 1325 says it is illegal for illegal criminal aliens to cross our